So I would say don't have too much of an expectation. Be ready to help when help is wanted, but don't meddle. If the kid is engaged in engineering a sentence or a paragraph, let them do that.
Yep.
Think what's going on in the brain while that's happening.
Hello, and welcome to the Arts of Language podcast with Andrew Pudewa, founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, or as many like to say, IEW. My name is Julie Walker, and I'm honored to serve Andrew and IEW as the Chief Marketing Officer. Our goal is to equip teachers and teaching parents with methods and materials which will aid them in training their students to become confident and competent communicators and thinkers. Well, here we are, episode 470.
All right.
Couple reasons why we know this is an Ask Andrew Anything.
Because it ends with a 0.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the other reason?
We're in the studio.
We are in the studio. Normally, we do not podcast from the studio. You know, your travel schedule is starting to get a little crazy.
Well, yours too.
Okay, a little bit.
Just blame me.
It's true. I've got some conventions to go to this year, which I'm excited about.
I am too.
Yeah. And I'm going to be in Northern California speaking at the Northern California Homeschool Convention this year. It's in Rockland.
Yes. Well, I'll be in Southern California at the GHC.
Yes. And actually, I'm going to be there with you, but only you're speaking. I'm not. I'm just going to be at the booth. So I like to go to these California conventions because that's where my family is.
That's where you have grandchildren.
Grandchildren. Yes, exactly. And my sweet mother is there. She's 95. So got to go visit her as often as I can. So we are here to ask a few questions.
Okay.
Some of these came from our customer service team. And of course, they're answering questions all day long. Yes, they are. Whether through phones, chats, emails. We have an excellent customer service team. Many of them work here in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. A handful or two handfuls now work remotely in various capacity, but all in the United States, and they're all excellent communicators.
Okay, I have a clarification. You have always told me a couple is 2.
This is true.
A few is 3.
Yes.
Several is 4 or more, but
Yes.
how much is a handful?
5.
Oh.
Unless you're missing a finger.
So 2 handfuls must be 10?
Yes.
So if it was 8, would it be a handful plus a few?
I'm going to go with still
2 handfuls?
2 handfuls
Okay.
because, you know, that thumb is just helping them keep them all together. So there we go. Now that's all the further I can count. Working for the Institute for Excellence in Writing, counting is
You
not
always
something...
say you're not good at math, but you are.
Well, thank you.
You're fine. You have an MBA. You had to take statistics. You've studied math I've never even touched.
Yeah, and finance and accounting. I did have some help from my husband with that.
Yeah.
So that was, but okay.
Okay,
Question
let's get
number
into
1.
it.
So Sandy, this is a homeschool mom, asked this question. What is the best way to implement IEW in my homeschool when I have significant learning differences?
Well, I would recommend one of the video courses, the SSS. It's 24 video lessons. You don't really have to do much except turn it on, be sure the kids have the right papers at the right time, and maybe do it with them.
Exactly.
You know, if you don't have a bunch of little kids preventing you from doing that, sit down and take the notes, copy the keyword outline, you know, make a copy for yourself if you want to of some of the papers and just do it with the kids. That is what I think is the best way. We don't know what her learning differences are, but whatever they are, we know that the SSS works for the kids. It would also work for the parents. The only thing I've come across, and usually this is with people who will say, English is not my first language, I'm not really confident in editing the kids' papers. Well, find a friend, you know, find a relative, find someone who would be comfortable editing the kids' papers. And, you know, with technology, just take a picture, send it. They can print it, mark all over it, take a picture, send it back. It's pretty easy now, I think, to have an editor at a distance.
Yes.
But, you know, most people who are teaching their kids in English, they've been in this country, you know, years or decades, their English is better than they think. They just still have that feeling, well, it's not my first language. It's not my native tongue. But, the level we're working at, too, I think you can be confident in doing that. So look into one of the SSS courses. We still offer free first 3 lessons or something?
Yep.
How do people get that?
So IEW.com/try-SSS.
Try-SSS. And download level A, if that's the good one. If it looks like it's too easy because you got teenagers or something, go for level B.
Yep. The other thing I would add is, especially if you have older students, we do have people available to help with marking and grading. So you can, for a fee, and this is not something that we are personally overseeing, but some of our teachers who have gone through our teacher training program perhaps are even using IEW Gradebook. And, link in the show notes for any of you that are not familiar with some of these resources. But you could actually hire someone to give that final grade on those papers if that's what you were hoping for.
And that's hiring them independent of us. These are independent people offering that service, and the link will be where you can find some of those.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one more plug for what we offer at IEW, our highest form of help for student teaching, and that is our online classes. And registration for online classes, we traditionally open registration for the fall in early April. So if you're hearing this and it's not quite April, then you know that you can sign up for the interest list, IEW.com/online.
And then you get first notice when we open it up, and sometimes we fill up pretty fast.
We do fill up pretty fast, yeah.
Okay,
next question is from Katie, another homeschool mom. She's got 4 young students. Do you think it's necessary to teach spelling with a formal curriculum, or would continuing consistent reading, copywork, and dictation suffice? And these, again, are 4 young students.
Well,
I mean, young is relative, right? Everybody's younger than us.
Everybody. Speak for yourself. I think that's a hard question to answer categorically because kids are different. I have met kids who you do very little formal spelling, and they just kind of suck it off the pages they're reading, the copywork, dictation, the writing program, just kind of, they get it. And they don't need a lot of repetition to learn to spell new words. Other children are in a different category. They need a lot more repetition. And in that case, it would be good to use a formal spelling program. We, of course, offer the All About Spelling with our primary arts of language for beginning spelling up through, first, second grade-ish. And then we have our own Phonetic Zoo, Excellence in Spelling, which seems to be still working very, very well after all these years. And then, of course, there are other spelling programs that people have used with good success. So I don't know that we can say yes for all your kids or no for all your kids. You may have to kind of observe, are they still misspelling words that they have copied and written and used a lot? In that case, maybe so. If they're getting it as you go, maybe don't worry about it until they're a little older.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have to give a plug for Greek and Latin word root study of some sort, because a lot of the longer multi-syllabic words in English do come from Latin or Greek.
Yep. And we've always thought about developing a program in-house for that, but we've never gotten around to it yet.
Not yet, but we will.
Someday. And Sydney, I just want to let you know, you can put your question right here in this chat because we can read them.
We can see it.
But in general, we always are calling questions from people who send them into our podcast and answer them. We try to answer them here, but even if we don't answer them here, someone will get back to you and answer that. So podcast@IEW.com would be the email address, but of course, we don't have access to that right now.
Yeah.
But you can post right now.
Sydney, Laura, Jocelyn, anyone else out there, please pop in a question if you can.
We'd love to answer your questions. Okay, I got one now from our customer service team.
Okay.
That I'm sure they know how to answer this, but they thought it would be helpful to have you answer this question.
I'm happy to hear this question.
Okay, great. When students repeat 1 to 3 key words from the final sentence for a title, can they use a form of the word. For example, if the final sentence says innovate, can they use innovation or innovated in the title?
Yes, absolutely. That works really well, as a matter of fact, because it's the same word base, and so you get that nice effect. The effect is you read the title, you read the whole composition, and then you hear the word in the title in the last sentence, and it just kind of makes it feel nice. Books that have done this, it makes it feel nice. Where the red fern grows, you hear that at the very end of the story. So yes, I would say any form of that word would qualify, and it might be a little more stylish even than wrangling the word into the title if it's not going to grammatically work smoothly.
Right. And I know that with our topic clincher rule, which is a little different than the title rule, it's repeat or reflect, which means you can use a synonym.
Yeah. And the topic clincher, it actually kind of works better when you reflect because it's more subtle. But the title final sentence works better when it's that same root.
Yep. Good. Great question. So next question is also through our customer service team. How do I differentiate my roles as editor and grader for my child? I know that when you do this in the SSS class, you tell the students, don't hire your mom.
No, I say you can hire your mom. You just have to know the difference between a mom and an editor.
Right.
Because an editor will fix up your paper and hand it back with no lecture or explanations that might be burdensome on the child.
Yeah.
Attached to that, and I put in things to our editor, and they send it back, and then I decide whether I like their suggestion or not, and usually I do, but it's kind of that just changing of the attitude. The thing you kind of want to avoid, especially I think with younger middle school kids, is try not to just explain too much. As I said in the 4 Deadly Errors talk, you start talking to little kids, 11-year-old boy, he may not be hearing what you're saying. He may be playing over it. I'm never good at this. I don't like this. I'm never make her happy. And they don't want to hear all that. But if you just cross out the word you don't like, put the better one, put in the missing word, put the period, put the capital, change the ly. Or a lot of times kids will underline a word and think, oh, that's my strong verb, but actually it's not a verb. So, okay, de-underline it, right? And then find a good verb, underline that, and then just put good strong verb here. And that's just one little bit of information that they learn more easily and thoroughly. What is a verb? What is an adjective? I've even had kids mix up ly words and verbs.
Sure.
So it's just one of those things that, you can kind of have a concept, but it's the doing of it that really solidifies the concept, not another explanation or definition of the part of speech, et cetera.
Right. So are you explaining how to be an editor or how to be a grader?
Well, my approach to grading is the AI. It's an A, it's accomplished, you got 100%, or it's I, you're not finished. So if you didn't get a who-which clause in the second paragraph, well, then you just say, no who-which clause in the second paragraph, please fit one in. And if you need help, ask me. I'll be happy to give you some suggestions.
Right.
So, but if you're in a situation where you really want to give a grade and you're going to be okay by adding up the points, there are 50 possible points and you got 47, so you translate that into a 94 and you want to call it an A or an A minus or whatever, you can do that. I just think, especially in the homeschool, just do it again until you get 100%. And that creates that's a character development thing. That's not just a writing technical growth. That's I'm going to persist until I have accomplished everything on the checklist. And those are the kind of people we like to hire.
Yes. If you have any of those, send them our way. And I'm just thinking about maybe that middle school or high school student, and they are ready to follow the directions on the checklist, which says checklist on top, final draft, rough draft, keyword outline, and stapled or paper clipped together, turned it in. Now you're the grader.
Yeah.
But prior to that, you're just the editor. So
Exactly.
if they believe they're turning in a final draft, then you can do A or I or any other way that you would grade it.
Yeah.
Just let the student dictate when you're going to put on that hat. I can just imagine I would do this. I would totally have done this. I'd put on a different hat. Did you want me to put my grader hat on? All right, give me a hat that says I'm a grader.
That would be fine.
Yes. So, just kind of nail that down. I'm one of those teachers, So it looks like we have a question here. Do we want to answer one of these questions? Oh, that's fun. Sydney, how do you choose your podcast guests? I've loved teaching IEW and grown a business centered around delivering IEW classes. We are proud to be teaching 80 plus students this year.
Wow.
And I wonder if there's an opportunity to share our story on your podcast. And I think, Sydney, the shorter answer to that question is things like this come across our radar. We look at our schedule, we see what we're trying to accomplish. And if it fits, if the shoe fits, we see if we can fit it. And we do have guests, a couple every 10 episodes.
Yeah. So email to podcast
at throw your hat in the ring. Maybe literally, no, just figuratively, certainly. So, and I'm going to tell everybody about this mug.
Oh, yes.
Because we were talking about this earlier.
The coveted and special mug.
It is hopefully not coveted.
Well, in the positive sense.
In the positive sense. Do you want one of these mugs? So Andrew is teaching a class of students. And it's just a group of,
it's my grandchildren, their cousins and friends.
Grandchildren, cousins and friends. It's a very elite group. But he was doing the ticket system. What book? You're making up your own lesson.
Yeah, I'm pulling from here and there, just experimenting a little bit, a little lab for me. But I give the kids tickets, like if they show up on time, if they get their piece in, if they get 100% with absolutely everything perfect, even the date on the corner of the page and every dress-up underline, I give them a bonus ticket.
Yep.
I'm doing Latin also, so they can earn tickets with Latins, and we do games. So they collect them up, and I don't know, they probably get 2 to 4 tickets a week, and then after the semester, we did an auction. So I said all the parents, send in junk you don't want that kids might find, an old this or that. And I had one of these mugs. So I put this in the auction. Oh, it got a high price.
Nice. Very good.
It was almost up to the super fancy Lego set that someone donated. I'd never seen it. It was like cactus Legos.
Oh, nice.
Like you can build houseplants with Legos.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, and this one girl, she just bid all her tickets on this Lego thing. But the mug came in a close second.
Very nice. So there are 2 ways to get your mug. Well, now 3. I guess if you are a student and want to take a class from Andrew Pudewa,
save all your tickets.
You can save all your tickets. But it's to either come work for us, because employees have an opportunity to get a mug. We try not to put them in the dishwasher because this does eventually wear off.
Will, yeah.
But if you are a premium member and enter our drawing, then we select a winner of the monthly mug as a part of our newsletter for premium members. So we have just over 8,000 premium members, and every month a newsletter goes out, and there we announce the new winner of the mug and an opportunity to.
And that's why the newsletter is called The Monthly Mug.
It's true. Exactly right. The monthly mug. So that you can win a mug. Just a subtle reminder that you too can have one of these IEW mugs.
We should put one of those paintings of me to go with that newsletter sometime.
Oh, that's really...
Because it's a double, like the mug.
Oh, the mug shot
idea.
Nice. Yep.
Anyway.
Well, and we do have our staff usually in that monthly mug. That's what we feature as one of our staff members holding a mug. And but I do love that idea. So Andrew, you have to tell that story about painting with Pudewa.
Well, yeah, the CC people,
Classical Conversations,
they get together and, each month for a while and watch the TWSS course together. And some of these moms have done this 3-4 times. So they really understand our system pretty well because they've gone through this TWSS each year. Yeah. And so they'll do, I think the first one was popcorn. So popcorn and Pudewa. And then this got to be contagious. So there was, pizza with Pudewa and peanuts with Pudewa. And there was even, I'm not sure this is a great idea, pina coladas and Pudewa. But someone did a painting in Pudewa, and they were trying to paint me from watching the video. I was worried, are they really hearing what I'm saying?
Right.
But anyway, and someone did a version of me in a style imitating the style of Picasso, which, I mean, it wasn't terribly flattering, but what I liked about it was that they were imitating.
Yes.
Right? Because we talk about that a lot, the power of imitation in developing art skill in writing and, of course, in painting. So
we'll put that picture in the show notes.
Yeah.
And maybe that mug will show up on our next monthly mug. That would be fun.
I'll leave that in your hands.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, I'm going to ask one of these questions, and then we can take one from our people that are here today. Thank you for joining us. It's always a delight to see people caring enough to take time out of their busy day to hang out with us for a little bit.
Middle of the day,
yeah, that's right. Okay, so how long should it take a fifth grader? I already know what you're going to say, but I'm just going to say it. How long should it take a fifth grader to write a keyword outline in rough draft?
Well, the prelude to the answer is you can't just make a judgment based on approximate age.
Right.
Because fifth graders are all different, 10-year-olds are all different, and I wouldn't want to have an expectation that someone then,
Mr.
fell
Pudewa
short
said.
of and thought, I'm failing. And, some kids just take a lot longer to put words on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would divide the question because with kids that age, particularly if it's the first year, most of the keyword outlines should be done kind of together, either with mom at home, or maybe it's, in a class or a co-op kind of situation, and you're doing the keywords together, and so they're copying off the whiteboard. And so first year, particularly, up to wherever you are right now, unit 5 or 6, you want to be doing at least 2 or 3 of those keyword outlines together, and then maybe say, okay, try this one on your own, but I'm here to help. So I wouldn't know how to say how long it would take a kid to do that, because you probably are doing it together, and it might be dependent on how much time you have each day, etc. Once the keyword outline is done, what I have generally budgeted for groups of children that age, this is going to sound extreme, but my experience is an hour per paragraph to write the thing, plus then it gets edited and copy it over. So but again, if it takes longer, that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. That just means it's taking the child more time to do it. And I always tell kids in the classes too, and I used to travel around and teach classes a lot. And I'd always say, hey, if you're not finished by when I call time on this, don't feel bad. Everybody writes at a different speed. And a really important thing to note, some children take longer because they are thinking more.
Yep.
I actually watched my 9-year-old granddaughter spend about 10 minutes deciding on one sentence.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I kept trying to speed her up, and I kept trying to make a suggestion, and she didn't like my suggestion.
Oh, Grandpa.
And she just was sitting there staring at it, obviously thinking. She wasn't inattentive. She wasn't distracted. She just wanted to figure out the best possible combination of words in her mind for this sentence. So I always say, don't feel bad if it takes you longer. It might be because you're thinking better and you're going to write better as a result.
Right.
And then I'll usually tell them the little anecdote. I think you've heard me say this, but Oscar Wilde, famous poet, wrote the Selfish Giant, charming children's story. Oscar Wilde wrote in a letter to a friend of his once, I spent the morning editing one of my poems. I put in a comma. This afternoon, I took it out. Yes. Like, okay.
There's a productive day.
You get to a point where every little thing matters. It does take time.
Yep.
On the opposite extreme, you've got kids who'll just whip the thing out. I got to be done with it because I want to get back to my normal life and play and do whatever I want to do. And that's okay too. So I would say don't have too much of an expectation. Be ready to help when help is wanted, but don't meddle. If the kid is engaged in engineering a sentence or a paragraph, let them do that.
Yep.
Think what's going on in the brain while that's happening.
Yep, exactly. So we have a question here from Jocelyn. Jocelyn says, I am presenting IEW writing lessons to a homeschool group of moms and grandmas and their students.
I love the fact there's grandmas in there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'd be there, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Will you share some encouragement with first-timers that feel overwhelmed? So it's not for the teacher, it's for the students and their parents and grandparents who might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed because this is their first run around the block with IEW.
Yeah. Well, there's several ways to think of that. The first thing I always say to kids is this is going to be hard, painful, you're going to suffer.
It's
so
true,
just,
he does say that.
Get ready to suffer. And it's funny because that level of humor, it's not what they expect. And so it kind of disarms them. It kind of alleviates some of the anxiety and creates a bit of empathy. Like, yeah, I know this is hard. This is hard. So don't expect it not to be. On the other hand, I would refer back to the 4 deadly errors, the second of which is, withholding help. Don't withhold help. Give as much help as needed, and let the moms and grandmas know, if the kid can't think of a word, if they can't think of how to do the dress-up technique, give a suggestion. Give a few suggestions and let them choose one and try it. And right along with that is just don't be so attached to the product. Mm-hmm. I'm teaching these kids, and I really don't care much about how good the product is after they've only been, 12 weeks into it, right? That's not the point. It's the experience, it's the engagement, it's the doing it, it's the doing their best. And then if they are overwhelmed, I'll just come over. I got one little guy, he's very overwhelmed. I just cross things off the checklist, say, don't worry about all 5 of these dress-ups.
Yep.
You just do these 2 and let me know if you need any help. So I think those are the 2 best guidelines is kind of, dissipate any anxiety through a bit of humor and let them know that it's totally okay. Whatever they do is okay. Mm-hmm. And then it's usually, if I read this question, I'm thinking it's usually the parents that are more overwhelmed than the kids because the parents will have this expectation of, oh no, if my child doesn't do it right, I'm somehow failing. And don't worry so much. Get through it. Next year, everything will go easier, smoother. There'll be less anxiety. The 3rd year, then the kids are going to start saying, okay, I got it. Leave me alone.
Right.
And I've seen that so many times.
Yeah. I love what you shared because this idea of once and done with IEW, we're hoping that's not what you're thinking. We're hoping that you will be a part of our IEW family for years and just trust the system, trust the process, because it is a process.
Everywhere I go now, I meet young adults in their 20s
nice.
Who grew up doing IEW, and they remember stuff. And often they'll say, oh, I took my IEW notebook when I went off to the university, and it was still useful. I still use the portable wall thing. I still use this or that. Or, I remember that topic clincher rule, and I got A's on all my paper.
Yep.
So the investment you're making during the school age years, it'll pay off. They won't remember 100% of everything, but who does?
Right.
However, the most useful things will still be useful after you're done, on the front lines teaching it every day to your middle schoolers or whatever.
Exactly. So I have one last question. It's a softball.
These are all softballs.
Yeah,
Don't you have a good one?
No, this is another
right.
super easy one. What if a student, this would be easy for Andrew to answer. This is a legitimate question. So I just don't want our listeners to think, this is an easy question. Everyone should know the answer to this. You know the answer to this. So that's why I'm asking you this question.
Okay, let's hear it.
What if a student cannot remember what the information in the keyword outline means when it's time to write?
Yeah. So I do address this in the TWSS. And the first thing I would say is it could be an indicator that the reading level of the source text was just a little bit above their own reading, comprehension, decoding skills. In which case, there's a few options. Number one, use a different source text. But if you're using one of our courses, that's not quite the same option. With our theme-based books, some of them, we have simpler written source texts that are the same information, but with shorter sentences and not quite such a higher level of vocabulary. Those are available for free download. Anyone purchases the thing, they get a link and get it off the website. It's in the blue page. The second thing I would say is some people think, well, you have to read it once, make your keyword outline, put it away forever, and then just deal with what you got.
Stuck.
And you can't remember, why did I write these words? That could happen to anyone.
Sure.
So is it okay to go back and read the original again? Absolutely. You can read the original 3, 4, 5, 10 times. If there's unfamiliar words, pull out your dictionary or your phone dictionary app and define the words. So that the kids really do understand the source text. And, when I'm teaching in a group, I will talk to them about the source text just to be sure. Are there any words anyone didn't recognize? If it's an idiom or an allusion or something that might be unfamiliar, I'll specifically say, does anyone know what this means? And then someone will say it, and then everybody else gets to hear it. So talk through the source text before you even start making the keyword outline, and that will often help. And then don't neglect the step of talking through the keyword outline before you go and try to write it out. That talking through, we make a big deal of it in Unit 2. Well, Unit 1 is just talking through. Unit 2, don't not talk it through, then write it out. But you can talk through keyword outlines from any of the units. Even Unit 8, if you get there and you need that. So usually enough talking gets it more solid in the memory and imagination. And then when they go to write it out, it's easier. And then the keyword outline lets them remember, what was the next idea in the sequence. But again, if you're stuck, I don't remember why I wrote these words, go read it again and change the outline if you need to make it closer to what you're trying to remember.
Yep. Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Laura has a question for us. Fix it. This is a great question, Laura. How early can I start? Well, Laura, you can start anytime. Oh, wait a minute. You're talking about your...
You know what she means. Yeah.
He is 10 and starting to read well, but not long words yet. Should I wait until he can read the fix-it sentences very well? I should mention that I do love Fix-It. Yes, we do too. We love it. I did it with my 2 oldest. Now we're in year 4 of Fix-It. Amazing.
Congratulations, Laura.
It's the best program out there. Hey, Laura, come work for us. I agree with you. I can't recommend it enough. So What about this 10-year-old, Andrew?
Well, I'll just address the idea of grammar in general, which is I really do think that it is better to wait a little too long than to start too early, if those are your 2 choices. And the way that you would decide if you're starting too early is it's taking a long, long time and there's frustration, right? So if it's very frustrating, then I might just wait a year. And, kids grow up a lot between 9 or 10 and 11 and 12. I mean, their vocabulary, their comprehension, and grammar by its nature is somewhat abstract.
This is level 6. This is the highest level. But on the back, this is what I wanted to pull. This is why I wanted to pull it. Successfully learn grammar in only 15 minutes a day. So if your 10-year-old is taking longer than 15 minutes, it's probably too soon, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And the other thing is, don't feel like, again, don't have an expectation that a 10-year-old is just going to do it all independently. Do it together. And people have this fear like, well, if we do it together, he's not learning it. But the opposite would be true. If you're not doing it together and he's not doing it, that's when he's not learning it.
Yeah.
So
do you know what we've learned, Andrew? Hopefully these are not your students, but we hear this over and over again. If the students are not doing it with a teacher or their parent, they skip the learn it. So every week you've got learn it, and then you've got read it, mark it, fix it, and then rewrite it. And they're skipping the learn it, so they're just going right into the fix it.
Well, I might do that too if I were a kid. But the learn it, really, that's something you want to read with the kids, talk about it. And the bridge is how do you make the abstract idea? I mean, the whole idea of parts of speech and the difference between a phrase and a clause, and that's pretty abstract in a way. And I would hope that Laura also is using one of our programs with a dress-up checklist. Because once you start putting an ly adverb into your own paragraph, you now understand adverbs much, much, much better than if you just read a definition in the learn it part, right?
Yep, exactly.
Same thing with, the who which clause or the strong verb or the quality adjectives. So by doing it first, that builds a familiarity. Then when you go into the fix-it, you've got that familiarity, and at least the parts of speech part of it is more concrete. The punctuation's probably a little bit more concrete than the parts of speech business. And then, of course, we've also got in there homonym problems and usage problems. And that's going to be connected with both spelling as well as, that inherent grammar that you get from daily life, being read to out loud, reading. So, again, probably better, just go a little slower, wait a little bit, and pick it up in 6 months or a year.
Yep. Sounds great.
Yeah, she said, I did sit down with my 2 oldest for every lesson and did it. Now I'm glad. And those are the 2 oldest who are in year 4.
Yes, that's right. And I bet you learned a lot too, Laura, didn't you? So, all right, that's all our questions.
That's it for today?
That is it for today.
That was good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please subscribe to our podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, or just visit us each week at IEW.com/podcasts. Here you can also find show notes and relevant links from today's broadcast. One last thing, would you mind going to iTunes to rate and review our podcast? This really helps other smart, caring listeners like you find us. Thanks so much.